You're listening to Opera Box Score.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Wherever you are, however you're listening, it's America's talk radio show about opera. It's Opera Box Score. I'm Ashley Hargrave, joined today by co-host Oliver Camacho. All right. The 2024 Summer Olympics are in the books, and the 2024 Santa Fe opera season is winding down, but we still have content to share from both. We'll recap our favorite moments of the games and go inside the huddle with soprano Liv Redpath and conductor Roberto Kalb. Plus, in the 2-minute drill, the Yuval Sharon ring cycle is announced, and the Lepage machine goes in the recycling bin. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast. On Spotify, you're going to click follow. On Apple Podcasts, it's just a little plus sign. You can also send us a voice memo or email us your hot takes. That's going to be at mailbag@operaboxscore.com, or you can just record your thoughts using the You Got Something to Say tab on our website, which is, guess what? operaboxscore.com. However you contribute, you're going to get an OBS beer coaster, an OBS lapel pin, and a #1 OBS fan foam finger just for sharing your own hot take. I have one right here on my desk that I play with all of the time. Oliver Camacho, my dear, how are you? Welcome back.
Can you believe that the drama from the women's gymnastics tournament competition is not over yet?
I really can't.
What do you think is going to happen to Jordan Childs' bronze? Is she giving it up?
I fear she's going to have to. There's a precedent in Olympic history where when the medal is returned, it is returned. So they don't often, unless there's a legitimate tie, which there wouldn't have been in this case, they make the person who is no longer considered the bronze medalist give it back. There's an added wrinkle in that there was a score. I can't remember the name of the gymnast, but there's the Romanian gymnast that put in the grievance. There's another gymnast, and then Jordan Childs if they knock her score back down. So it just sort of muddies the waters. I'm heartbroken for both of them.
But the reason why her score would change is because of 4 seconds or something like that.
Yeah, the rule is basically you have a minute to put in the challenge to the score. Basically, they're saying her difficulty score should have been higher and asked the judges to review it. The judges did review it, but the request allegedly came in 4 seconds after that 1 minute mark. The thing is, if this was how it was going to go down, this is all on the judges. This is all on the judges for incorrectly doing the difficulty score in the first place, for not enforcing the time limit at that moment and putting both of these poor young women who were literally at the tops of their games through all of this emotional heartbreak. Because of course there was like the Romanian gymnast whose name I'm forgetting, she had pulled out her Romanian flag because she really thought she won bronze. And then the challenge came in, Jordan became the medalist, which meant this poor young woman from Romania had to put that flag right back in her backpack. So this isn't on either of them. This is on the judges and their errors and their mistakes.
Oh, yeah, it leaves a bad taste. But I mean, I have to say, we're recording on Monday as we always do, and the closing ceremony was yesterday. We could talk about that in a little bit. But God, I'm already so sad. I didn't want it to end,
It is Olympics blues. I mean, it has been, the 33rd Olympiad was my whole personality for 17 days. Completely my whole personality. And I'm just not sure what I'm supposed to hyperfixate on now. I guess football season is coming and the Chicago Bears might be good, but it's not going to be enough to really keep me going. Something that might, however, keep me going, besides the handsomeness that is Léon Marchand, Oliver, I thought of you immediately when I saw this hot little French swimmer. I was like, Oliver's going to want to talk about this, and I support it. But something that might keep my interest is, again, you love where I bring in things like pop culture, but I have a point. Mr. Worldwide, Pitbull himself, has bought a stadium. So Pitbull is a hip hop artist. He literally goes by Mr. Worldwide. He's this entrepreneur. He's purchased the naming rights to Florida International University's football stadium. So according to board documents from the university, he's going to pay the school $1.2 million a year for the next 5 years, which changes the name of FIU Stadium to Pitbull Stadium. And so my suggestion here is, why don't we do this with opera houses? Could you see the Lyric Opera of Chicago's Celine Dion stage, the San Francisco Opera's McKinsey Bezos artist wing? We do the namings. Why don't we name opera houses? Don't you think this is something that would be a possibility?
Well, I mean, I think you have to talk to the Devo teams, but I think a lot of these places actually have named auditoriums and like named seats and like named water fountains and stuff like that. So it's happening. But I think you're also suggesting, why don't we get people like Pitbull to spend money, class up their portfolio?
They need the class in the portfolio, and we need the eyeballs and the possible ticket buyers just from the interest of that. However, until we can get Pitbull to buy Lyric Opera House, let's talk some opera.
Huddle up. Let's go inside the huddle.
So I was at Santa Fe, and the media team, whom I love so much, they give me my opportunity to make an interview request with anybody who is available. And I was looking at the list. I was like, okay, I interviewed that person already. Oh, I interviewed that person already. It's like I should really do some digging around and interview somebody else I don't know. And so I was thinking, oh, there's this Liv Redpath soprano who I remember singing Oscar in the Ballo and Maschera broadcast from last year at the Met. And I remember it was very good. And so I said, well, she's here this year. Let me find out what she's all about. And so I just started digging around and, looking on the internet and seeing, oh, she won this competition. Oh, she was in that competition. Oh, she sings Baroque music. Oh, wait a second. She's also like a bel canto singer. Oh, wait, and I just could not figure out what she was. What was clear is that she has an incredible technique, and she looks like a real hard worker, and she seems to really understand every assignment she's given and execute. So let's hear Liv define herself, and just take note that I recorded this interview before I had a chance to hear her sing Zerlina in Don Giovanni, but we'll talk about that.
I think part of what's been a slow burn for me and is paying off now, and I think will continue to, is that I am not one thing. And I have been very interested in figuring out how my technique and how a technique can work. And while doing that, also pretty equally interested in every part of the repertoire. Many people, I think, in school, they end up finding their niche and they say, well, great, I'm going to be a Mozart soubrette and I'm going to sing some Handel. Or they say, well, I just love Donizetti and Verdi and I'm going to be a bel canto singer. But I kind of have refused to do that. I like every challenge and I see the beauty in so much of the repertoire. And I guess you could say I'm selfish about not wanting to give up any one thing. And mostly I'd say I just want to sing my favorite music. I want to sing the best music I can. And that isn't ever going to be limited to,
Okay, so once you start saying soubrette, then you start putting yourself in a box. And maybe that's the reason why we're not using that word necessarily.
Well, and the truth is most of what I've sung is actually lyric coloratura repertoire. And if anything, I think my voice is now filling out. And so I'm getting into this part of life where,
like Lucia and stuff like that.
Yeah. And and I can go and sing my first Susanna. It could have happened sooner, but what did happen sooner was singing like Marguerite de Valois in Les Huguenots, or singing Zerbinetta.
So you made your debut here as Zerbinetta.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've missed that. I should have been here for that because that would have been like, okay, now I know who this girl is. But instead, for audiences like me who are going to be meeting you for the first time, we're hearing you as Zerlina, which back in the day, was actually the best acting role in Don Giovanni and the one that the audiences loved the most of the three Don Giovanni heroines. But now seems to be relegated to the high mezzo or whatever the ingenue, coming out of whatever their apprentice program,
Yeah.
But you're a full-fledged, lyric coloratura soprano who can sing an octave above what Zerlina is asked to do.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, you are cast as Zerlina this year.
Indeed. Indeed. Yeah. And I think for me, it's like I'd say the past year and the year coming up are both, really amazing years to like look forward to and reflect back on. For instance, I was just telling, I gave a little speech to some donors just now, and in January, I sang this kind of wild part in Die Jakobslieder by Schoenberg with the Berlin Phil. And I said no to it originally as a possibility, even because the role is the soul. And I sing on off for the last 5 minutes, 10 minutes of this oratorio. And it goes from a low G to a high F. And I just thought, I don't know if this is, should will I be good at this? But, I learned it. I recorded it, frankly, to show my manager that I was not good at it. And of course he listened to it and thought, well, can I send this along to Petrenko? So I ended up doing, a job like that. Say,
with the high F in it.
With with all that 3 days in a row, which was quite a bit of days in a row. But, so, I go from things like that to, the Oscar in the Fall and Pamina, and I
want to talk about Oscar, but
yeah.
Are you still singing Zabrinetta? Is that still what you offer? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just I'm kind of wild. I'm out there. Within reason, I sing the music I want to sing.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like Oscar is one of those roles that's like, it sounds like, you could put, for lack of a better word, Kathleen Battle in that, but it's actually a very rich, like richly orchestrated, heavy.
Yeah, it's a big cast other than Oscar.
Yeah.
It's big voices up there. And I had learned those arias when I was a teenager. And when the Met called about it, I was like, yeah, let me quickly learn this in 5 days, actually. They had someone drop out.
Oh.
So I was in Sag Harbor actually giving some wonderful art song recitals by the former, which is put on by the former administration, Brad Woolbright of Santa Fe Opera. And so I quickly finished my last concert on a Sunday there, had printed out the score, and just learned the rest of it in the next 3 days before we started rehearsal. So it was a surprise debut. I was already...
Splendidissimo.
Yeah, exactly. Very good quote. And this Pamina afterwards was already scheduled. So I ended up with kind of this amazing, wonderful debut that really, I think, suited me for the Met stage. And
the Pamina was also at the Met?
Yeah, I did their holiday Pamina right after that. So
was that one of the broadcasts?
No, Janai did the other. Yeah.
So we're here at Santa Fe, and in doing my research, I did look for some of your content online, as one does. And I saw this masterclass where you're trilling with Renee Fleming, which was a hoot. But then I saw the Lucia. And then I came across this Edinburgh Festival video with Yeston Davis singing Saul. And I was like, oh, you actually know how to sing Baroque music. You're not just
try.
You're not just faking it. No, but you were leaning into dissonances. You were, doing the prepared trills and the appoggiatura from the right, all the stuff that I listened for. You were doing it. So is that because you love it, or because somebody coached you, or because you hang around people that, said, this is how it actually goes,
Yeah, I truly, my whole life, I've just really wanted to keep honing the skills of each and every one of these things. And it is a challenge to go between these worlds, because some people don't, and either by choice or not by choice. It is a conscious decision on my part to want to do these things, and then to really want to do them in the right way. I remember when I was in the Young Artist program in Los Angeles, talking to my wonderful coach there, Jeremy Frank, and I was covering both Blanchen and Constanze when they were doing Abduction. And at the time, Jeremy was really kind of going all in on me prepping Blanchen. And after some number of coachings, I said, okay, well, can we work more on the Constanza, please? Because I'm also preparing that. He said, oh, yeah, okay. Yes, we can. And I said, I think this is going to end up suiting me better. The tessitura, the way that this role actually sits, I can sing Blanchen, but the calibration is different for these two things. And I think we ended up having a bit of a debate about that, and it all culminated in me doing a Sitzprobe as an exercise in which I sang both roles at the same time.
But not the quartet.
Unfortunately, the quartet, I was unable to split myself, but everything else. And after that, I remember we had a conversation and he said, okay, I see what you mean. You do also those two roles because of the tessitura and the character itself. You sing them differently. You calibrate your voice differently. And there are different colors sometimes that come out in a voice depending on what you must calibrate it for technically. So that's, I guess, kind of an illustration probably of why I do what I do the way I do. And
have you had a chance to sing Constanza on stage yet?
I will in 2 summers.
Okay. I would be very curious about how you feel about it after you've done it.
Yeah.
From my understanding, it's one of those roles that once you're in the productions, like it's your life. Like there's no drinking, there's no caffeine, there's no, it's like, it's perfection. It's like you have to be, there's so many challenges in that role and it's like Norma, it's like.
Yeah. And I will say that's kind of also, for instance, this summer, it's kind of a joy for me once in a while to get
Zerlina.
A reprieve and to get to sing as Zerlina.
I could sing Zerlina.
Yeah, be expressive, have some fun. Yeah. Because there is a part of my brain, which it's kind of my personality. For the most part, I really like these characters where you have to have the 15-minute mad scene, or you have to have these highly, highly focused moments where there is no room to kind of do anything else.
Which is like...
Yeah. So that's, I'd say, a personality trait of mine that fits with characters and music.
Well, we're in Olympic season, so it does feel like it's your all-around competition,
Exactly. I want to do it all. That's my hallmark. Yeah.
So since we are talking about Don Giovanni, the cast is incredible.
Yeah.
Rachel Willis Sorensen as Donna Anna, and I've heard her do it before. But
we are blessed. Yeah.
I wonder if you notice when she sings how much time she takes, even though it's Mozart and even though there's a pulse.
Yeah.
She manages to take her time and to set herself up for success.
Exactly. She is a smart lady.
Yeah.
and she is a smart technician. And I do notice that. And you learn from that. I think the audience learns from that. You kind of learn how to listen in a more patient way when you witness a singer who knows themselves and knows singing well enough to say, actually, let's take a moment at a time here. And then the music will happen. I think it's so smart.
I mean, I was here interviewing Maestro Kalb, and the auditions, those big house auditions were happening yesterday.
Yeah.
And you could just hear when you're young, it's like, there's nerves, of course, but it comes off as like, you're not taking time, and you're like forgetting that there are rests there, and that those rests actually are important,
Mm-hmm. And I still have to go back to that. Rachel's been at this and has done so many things in this career so far, even, and more to come. But I think we all have to remind ourselves the pressure is so great, the external pressure from the music staff, the conductor, the director, all the expectations you have for yourself. And yet, when you look at who performs at a really magical kind of transcendent level, it's exactly what you say. You see people who know how to take a moment to set themselves up for success and to then invite people in rather than feeling the need to impress outwardly what it is that they're doing.
I'm so glad you said that, because there's actually a parallel to that in acting. We're also doing that. But if you lean back, it's more powerful than leaning forward,
Exactly.
And a lot of people want to show, I'm aggressive, I'm going to lean forward. But it's like, you actually look weak that way,
Yeah.
Just put your weight on your back foot,
yeah.
And all of a sudden you become taller,
Yeah, and you invite people in rather than kind of forcing ideals on them, whatever it might be. Yeah.
So you're working with Maestro Bickett. Has he heard you in other things before, or is this your first time?
Well, he and I have only worked together on two concerts that we did in Barcelona and Madrid, just like, in February of this year, of Popea. But
were you Drusilla or Popea?
I was Drusilla.
Okay. That tracks.
Yeah.
A Popea in waiting.
Yeah, a Popea in waiting for sure. But Harry has heard me, of course, when I was at Serbinetta here, but James Gaffigan was conducting that show.
Okay.
So he's heard me sing that. And, I don't think he's ever heard me sing.
Handel. He needs to hear you sing Handel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because
that
he's
would
doing
be
this
fun.
project right now. He's recording all the Handel.
Yes, yeah, and I think we were going to try to do one thing last fall, but it didn't end up working out with scheduling with Handel stuff. But hopefully more Handel in my future. But I'm also, because I'm so into so many parts of the repertoire, I don't ever really feel like I'm missing out because there's always something to do.
Yeah.
And I feel like Handel will be there for decades for me.
But what is going away very quickly is the opportunity to record at a professional level. I mean, everybody's producing their own recordings these days, which is great. But there are fewer and fewer opportunities to
very true.
Have a label behind you and like an orchestra like Age of Enlightenment or,
very, very true.
a label,
Yeah.
So, I feel, I think I'm starting to understand you better now. And so you don't want to be categorized. You don't want to be put in a box and you want to be able to do everything.
Yeah.
But you can see how that might be hard for audiences to know, it's, of course they're going to cast this girl for this role,
Yeah. But so far I think it's worked overall to my advantage. I'm never bored and I'm never, without something to work on.
So what would be a passion project, even if it's like an art song recital or a passion role?
Well, I'm getting to do my first written on skin in May of next year, in concert in Rome with George Benjamin, and I am really, really excited about that. There are a few things in the contemporary repertoire that I really, really want to do, and that's
I don't know the
them.
show, but I know it's Lawrence Snowfer and Barbara Hannigan
yes.
role, right? Okay, yeah.
Hallmark, absolutely. So I love the show. I love the libretto. I find it really meaningful. And I mean, Cleopatra's, speaking of Handel, something I really want to do. I think I found in my work professionally that much like this whole, these ladies who sing these long, long scenes with lots of ideas in them, that is what I'm drawn to. And I'm drawn to intense women who go through something kind of big, whatever form that might take. So, I mean, Sophie's a great example on the happier front because you watch her learn so quickly in the course of that opera. She's such a smart person, but she only has the life experience she can have that she's been afforded. So you get to see somebody
you're
change.
Young.
Yeah, you're young. But what happens when you get this kind of forthright? She's well studied. I'll give her that. And
she memorized that book.
Yeah. She just, I don't know. She's got a heart of gold. I really think she wins you over. So the chance to get to play through that over and over again in these big scenes. Another one that I'm really dying to do that I covered here when I was an apprentice was the Golden Cockerel. There are a couple of things in the Russian repertoire.
It was a hymn to the sun.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, you're good. Yeah.
I'm just an opera queen.
What do you like opera? That I'm gonna do my first C minor mass in Denmark this winter. So, I don't know that those kind of pinnacles of the repertoire I am dying to do and to do frequently. I value them a lot.
Catherine Lewick has been a guest on this show, and I didn't know her until she came to Chicago and sang Queen of the Night. I was like, okay, that was really great, Queen of the Night.
Yeah,
then
she's stunning.
That same year, she sang C minor mass. I was like, oh, this is an important artist.
That's so cool.
It's not just high Fs that she can do. She's
and she's fun. She's just a good person. Yeah.
But she also takes time too. You could tell, like, she's like, she breathes and like, you're going to wait for her to breathe, but you're going to love it.
Exactly. It teaches us all. Cause like it's hardest in your own mind to remind yourself that that's worth doing. But I think once you take that kind of trust fall with the audience, then the audience responds by saying, oh, I'm glad you took that moment. Thank you. We all learn through those kind of things.
Yeah. I mean, it's impressive definitely to sing long phrases and whatnot, but nobody wants to hear somebody running out of breath or going for an emergency, reach for a high note that you're just trying to sing that note because it's in the score, but we all know you're not going to really be able to sing.
Yeah. And I think that is that's the magic of vocal musicianship and that's why, I don't I don't know, don't hate me for this, but I think instrumentalists eventually, especially breath-based, but actually not breath-based, they learn also from singers that, the breath is really important, even if you're not making sound out of your own voice box, that ebb and flow is what we all live off of. So in that way, singing is so instructive for every kind of music making. And we learn a lot of other things from instrumentalists, which I couldn't even delineate. So.
Well, since you just said, I just want to just add this here for people who are listening who might get some advice from this show. But the audience watching us breathe actually calms them.
Mm-hmm.
It calms yourself for sure. But if an audience sees somebody not breathing, then they're already nervous for you,
Yes.
So it's okay to breathe.
Exactly. They want to sit back and enjoy just as much as you want them to. Yeah.
Well, in our last few minutes, since now it sounds like you had quite a bit of experience here in Santa Fe, and I've just happened to miss all of it.
No.
Anything you'd like to say about now you have done you've been in all the buckets of where you can be in Santa Fe. You're even doing Devo events today, but you started out as an apprentice, it sounds like, and you had a role debut, and now you are, like you said, you're in the Susan Graham territory where you just come in and
Oh, I don't know about that. I don't think anyone will ever be in Susan Graham territory except Susan. But I just saw her yesterday. She's one of my favorite people. She's so cool. Well, I guess I'd say that something I'm super proud of when I look back on my coming up in this business is I did the work, and I did the humble things, and I did the apprentice programs here.
And learned all those choruses.
Here and in St. Louis and at Wolf Trap before there. And that's where you meet some of your friends, and that's where you meet the administration and the people who are really going to be there and make it all really happen. And I don't know, you put in your time in a positive way. And you also, I remember the principal artists who were so gracious to me and so kind, and there is no hierarchy. And likewise now, when I'm a principal artist, those apprentices, they are invaluable. And I want them to feel like they have a real part to play. They're not here just to be on some chorus contract. There's so much they can soak in, and that they are already contributing. So I'm just a big believer in the kind of full picture of how any company like Santa Fe, but especially Santa Fe, because they have such a strong apprenticeship program in every possible way, functions. And without it, what would we do? What would we do? I just think in the same way, you go work at the Met, and that assistant directing staff that's there on the ground 24/7 making
Marcus.
those shows happen. Yeah, Marcus. And it just Eric, everybody there, they make it happen. So without getting to know those people and that kind of community, what's it all for? I think that's what the audience starts to see when they come they don't know what they're seeing, but what they're feeling is the group of people behind who made that all work. And I sit alone in my practice room, and I work and I learn my music and I think about everything. But at the end of the day, when I come to work, that's the time that I get to enjoy my friends. And it's not just my friends that sing, it's my friends that cue me on stage and all that stuff. So
change your costume in The Righteous.
Yeah, exactly. Change your costume 4 billion times. Yeah. Let me tell you, could we do it without those people? Absolutely not.
Well, that would be the perfect place to end, but I have to ask one more question, because we are in Industry Week here at Santa Fe, and I have never noticed so many people in the audience as I did yesterday for Traviata. And I don't know, is there an extra pressure that you feel when you know that just about every North American general director is out there?
Yeah. Of course, I think there's a little more pressure. But at the same time, I'd say for me, in the last 4 years, really since the pandemic, I've just gained I've gotten my real love back of what I do, and the kind of moment to moment joy that I really try to use to banish any big worries about how's this going to be. Because it goes a little bit back to this whole take your time and the breathing thing. It's all about the life of the mind and what's going on with moment to moment, how you're feeling about your character. What can you notice on stage? Well, yes, of course, not totally disrupting your mechanism and singing too high and all this kind of stuff. But you want to tell that story. And for me, singing in Europe has really freed me to be myself and to go back to the imagination that kind of brought me to what I do. So I guess that's kind of the process I go through even now to try to enjoy every time I get on stage. Because if it's not a memorable moment for you, it's not going to be a memorable moment for anybody else either. So you just have to live it every time and think that that's actually what everybody else wants to really see.
Liv Redpath at the 56th Tenor Viñas competition at the Gran Teatro del Liceo. The orchestra conducted by Santiago Serrate. If you're listening to this podcast on the day it drops on August 15th, you have a chance to get down to Santa Fe and hear her sing Sophie in Der Rosenkavalier, and 2 more chances to hear her sing Zerlina in Don Giovanni. My thanks to the PR and media team at Santa Fe Opera for setting me up with Liv.
Thank you, Santa Fe, and thank you, Liv. Okay, Oliver, listen, we got to talk about the closing ceremonies. Did you have the opportunity to watch them?
You know, I have to say, I made this grievance last week, but I don't have cable anymore. I have YouTube TV.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really tricky to set up future recordings. You have to know what show you want to watch. You have to know what it's called, and then you have to add it to your to watch later on or your playlist.
Yeah.
And so if you don't know that you have to look for, it's going to be a closing ceremonies title or whatever. I think it was called Handing It Off to LA or something weird. The program ended up having a very strange name. The Handoff to LA is what it ended up being called.
Huh.
So I wanted the primetime coverage because I know the primetime coverage is going to be a lot tighter.
Right.
Luckily, I had the live coverage, so I was able to watch it, but I didn't get all the quicker edits and the more brisk version of it. So I had to fast forward through a bunch of stuff. But I loved the speech. I forgot what his name was, but he was French and very handsome. And
that's all we need to know.
Yeah, I should know his name, but he made a very rhetorical speech. And he got the audience cheering, and then he switched to English for the end when he addressed the athletes, which I loved. Yeah. But he added Léon Marchand to his speech about we asked for inspiration and we got Léon Marchand. And when that happened, I'm going to cry now. When that happened, I was like, can you imagine being a 20-something person who was working really hard to do this thing? And granted, he probably has natural ability, but he worked really hard.
He did.
And now he's being recognized in front of the world by whoever this handsome French guy was, It's synonymous.
He was the president of the Paris Olympics Committee, I think.
But to be synonymous with the idea of being inspiring, it was too much for me. I was like,
oh my, I mean, that was me for the last 17 days, is just crying over whatever human interest story they're putting in front of us. I mean, that's one of the things that I love about the Olympics. And so when we're looking at closing ceremonies is everybody's done. It's all of the competitions have been had. The final medal of, which is this time around was the women's marathon, is awarded in, the middle of the ceremony. And it also becomes the handoff to the next version of that season's game. So, even though there's going to be something in Italy in 26, the summer games are going to next be in LA. So I did watch both the live in the moment coverage, and then saw bits and bops of the NBC recap that was in prime time. And the thing that was really interesting for me is, I'm talking more specifically about sort of the artistic versions and representations of what happens in these closing ceremonies. So in opening, everything was super, super, super artistic with lots of symbolism that certainly got a lot of conservative people confused and very upset. But, it was very much about like this celebration of sort of the artistic cultures and the sort of more refined, fancier arts, shall we say?
Yeah, Louis Vuitton.
France. Yes, exactly. Exactly. So it was very interesting to me that we began with, a little bit of that in the beginning. Then we've got some super wild symbolism. Then we go into things that are a little bit more pop. And then we go into like the America F yeah section. And so I just want to give you a little taste of my stream of consciousness notes that I started taking from the very top of the ceremony. Opening singer with chorus, Leon grabs a tiny lantern and is walking it somewhere. Turns out it's Stade de France. Lady orchestra conductor, we love. Okay, flute solo. Parade of Nations, same as usual. We now have a golden Voyager being brought out on wires, sort of an electric metallic bee of sorts.
Yeah, and a lot of smoke too.
A lot of smoke. Kanye West is back to help the Voyager. It wasn't Kanye West, but it was that guy with the mask on his face. And then now they have lots of helpers. Everybody is spinning around. Everybody is on round things. Oh, turns out they're the rings. Ben Bernheim is on a Ben Bernheim is singing with a suspended piano. Oh my God. Oh my God. And now it's an indie rock concert from 2009. And that's where I stopped taking notes.
Yeah. I thought the Tom Cruise stunt was cool. We saw it up close, and so it probably was less cool for us on TV because we could see all whatever the rigging and stuff like that, but it was still a very daring thing to do. I thought that her national anthem was good. I respect her guitar playing.
Right? Yeah.
Maybe not like, vocal chops at the same level as guitar chops, but still very, very, artistic performance, and it was in tune, obviously.
100%. And I have definitely heard her sing better than that and that stage. But I can only imagine sort of the pressures that are on you at that moment. And it was, and a lot of that stuff ends up pre-recorded. Hers was not. She was clearly singing live. As was the young woman at the very end who ended up singing My Way. But the thing that was so peculiar for me was, again, we go from this sort of artsy-fartsy, Thomas Joly joint continuation that we had from the beginning, the opening ceremonies, to this sort of like tribute to the pop side of France. And like, I did not realize that Phoenix, the band, was from France. I didn't realize they were from Versailles. I thought Listomania and 1901 was a very bizarre thing to sort of have in the middle of an amped ceremony. And then I was like, God, what are they going to do? Vampire Weekend? Yep, sure enough, there comes the lead singer from Vampire Weekend. Meanwhile, all of them, all of the bands from that era, the dudes are all dressed like startup founders. So it's like, there's no pomp to it, and they're great bands and it's fun tunes. It was just a very interesting thing for me to see. I did love the her section because I love her in general. I've actually said on this very podcast before that her national anthem at the Super Bowl a couple of years ago was really pivotal and really patriotic. The Tom Cruise thing for me, I get it because it's LA, it's Hollywood. Who is the biggest movie star in the world in several countries, not just in America? So I got the whole like gung, 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 gung of it. And, having Karen Bass there was wonderful. But after having these sort of high culture experiences with the French production, it was very weird to go from that to like the bald eagle farting glitter that is like all of the America stuff, And I was of two minds, Oliver. I was like, part of me felt really patriotic because we come from the her thing, which is incredible, to this like video montage. And I couldn't tell if I was supposed to be like proud and excited and patriotic or like a little bit embarrassed about how stark the difference was. I did love the little running montage that ended up on the live in real time performance on Venice Beach of some of LA's most notable acts. And then as soon as they cut to the Chili Peppers, I was like, Of course they did the Chili Peppers. It's such an LA band. By the way, fun fact, both Anthony Kiedis and Flea are 61 years old. They are 61 years old. We're not going to talk about Anthony Kiedis' way younger girlfriends. That's a conversation for another day. But to close it out with, Billie Eilish, who is sort of this new pop generation, and then to really go to like the darling of the Olympics, Snoop Dogg, and have him come out with Dre doing the next episode as the final like piece of the LA section, I thought was really smart because LA is going to be the next episode of the Olympics.
Was Snoop Dogg just a one long commercial for the LA Olympics?
Pretty much. I read somewhere that he was getting like $500,000 a day for his work at the Olympics. So, more power to him. He has created 17 different careers that I don't think anybody expected from him. And now everybody loves him. So, hooray. But also, sideways pianos, outfits made of recycled VHS, just a bizarre, it wasn't as decidedly French for my money as the opening ceremonies, but I don't think it has to be because it's only sort of 75% France's, and then it's about a quarter Americans because they're going to be the next ones. But overall, I did enjoy it. Again, I'm not sure where my patriotism will lie after this, but it was definitely interesting to see that sort of like breakneck series of cultural representations, one after the other.
Opera class. Sports radio crass. This is Opera Box Score.
Conductor Roberto Kalb, the current music director of Detroit Opera, is wrapping up a big 23-24 season, which included house debuts at Kansas City Symphony, Atlanta Opera conducting Rigoletto, Civic Orchestra conducting the Ryan Opera Center and Civic Orchestra finale. He also is in the middle of completing his house debut at Santa Fe Opera conducting Elixir of Love. I wanted to ask Roberto Kalb about his relationship to this Gabriel Leña Frank opera called El Último Sueño de Frida y Diego, and that's where we begin our conversation. I felt like since he is a Mexican conductor, and this is a very Mexican opera, and since the composer also has Latina/Asian heritage, that we would begin the conversation in the deep end of the pool.
First of all, Gabby is one of our foremost living composers, and she's of Peruvian descent. I met her parents. They're really lovely human beings. So that to start off, that the sort of representation just on the compositional end is fantastic. And then you have Frida and Diego, which are icons. I grew up in Mexico City. I was born and raised in Mexico. And basically, in everyday life, you see Frida and Diego are all over Mexico City. That's where I grew up. So, for example, in our textbooks, in the national textbooks, all of Diego's murals are on the cover. Field trips to Frida's house, the Casa Azul, are mandatory every couple of years. So to have this combo of Latin American icons with a Latin American composer icon in one was an incredible sort of a perfect storm of success, I would say. So, for example, in San Diego, it sold incredibly well. There were so many people in the audience that were first-time opera goers. And then when I did it in San Francisco, we sold out every single performance. 5 performances in that huge opera house. So I think, even for a skeptic, because the logo, what it would say in the marketing, it would say like, yes, you do these pieces that are about Latinos and blah, 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 and then Latinos will come to your shows, and people can sort of roll their eyes. But I will say that having given talkbacks at both of these places, Latinos showed up. They really showed up, and a lot of first-time opera goers showed up, which is what we love. And they love the music, and they love the story. And as you know, I don't know if you've heard any of the piece.
Just snippets on the internet.
It's
So
an incredible piece of music. And it's not just like, pop, sort of Mexican-sounding things. It's a real deal composition. It's very profound, beautiful music. And so to bring in first-time opera goers so they could witness this was really very moving. And basically what we all talk about, like, this is a great example of an example of what we all should be doing.
So you're saying that the music, that Gabriela Elena Frank's music, who I'm familiar with her music, like her instrumental stuff, I wouldn't describe it as the most accessible composition. Do you feel like she adapted for a new opera audience, or did she stick with her sort of her kind of folk inspired? No, she's like always bringing in like Peruvian folk music into her sounds and using weird instruments, and it's not always rhythmically like so clear what's happening.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think the narrative part of it that certainly lent itself to maybe sounds that are more familiar to people.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, the first moment we interact with Diego Rivera, there are these 3 guys that are in the cemetery and they're afraid to talk to him, and they sing this beautiful trio, and it sounds like something out of the Andes. It sounds something really quite folkloric.
That's her. That's what I recognize as her music. So
there is that interesting combo where it's like, there are at times it's challenging for the ear, but it adds to that sort of like mysticism, and it's really kind of like the chorus plays such a huge role in that piece. So she's a master of choral writing. So you have this sense of kind of like hybrid opera, oratorio, surreal, and still also very intimate characters interacting on stage. I think it's, and after, it's been, it started in San Diego, then San Francisco, then LA.
You didn't conduct San Francisco, did you?
I conducted San Francisco. I did not conduct LA.
Okay.
And then it's going to other major
Did you have
theaters.
Ana Maria Martinez in your cast?
No,
that's the LA cast.
Yeah,
okay.
So actually I had Yaritza Bellis.
Okay.
In San Francisco.
Who's here at Santa Fe right now?
Singing Adina with me at El Elixir d'Amor in Santa Fe. And for the premiere, we had Maria Catzarava. Maria is a legendary Mexican singer and who's now the artistic director of the Opera de Bellas Artes in Mexico City.
Well, you said that the audiences showed up. I remember Larry Brownlee, when he was starting his Lawrence Brownlee and Friends concerts, how he was quickly able to fill, those venues with Black audiences. And then he would say to them, okay, thank you for coming to this, but I want you to come also to the opera. I want you to come hear me sing I Puritani or Barbara Seville or whatever he was singing that year. And I hope that, hearing somebody like Ana Maria Martinez or Yaritza or Kiman Mara, that they get the bug, that they say, oh, wow, I never heard that sound before,
That's the hope. But also that's the big job of the opera companies, that in order to retain the audiences, you need to keep in touch with them and motivate them to come back. Not just for the stories. I think the audience needs to realize that even if we showcase a story that's very explicitly about them, even if they come to Elixir d'Amore, then also that story is about them too. It's the ultimate romantic comedy, right? So it's just about making people aware of these things, and I think then we'll have full houses.
So you are the music director at Detroit Opera, and I don't know is this your first full season coming up, or
I just finished my first full season conducting, but it's been 2 years since I was announced, and I've been working sort of in administration and obviously with orchestra auditions and all these things.
Do you get to have an impact on planning the season?
I do. I work very closely with our artistic director, Yuval Sharon, who's a brilliant human and really a wonderful person to work with artistically. So we have
who's been invited on this podcast many times and is not accepted yet.
Oh no, I'm about to see him. He's coming to Traviata,
Oh,
so
really?
I'll complain to him. But he has usually like a really wonderful general vision about the seasons, and then him and me and our artistic team, we sort of have meetings and we discuss what we think about those plans. But early on, when I came in, Yuval asked me what my bucket list was, what pieces I was dying to conduct. And he's been really great about, honoring these things. And also for me, it was important that we played certain repertoire for our orchestra for development. And we've been able to really satisfy a lot of these things.
Well, I want to talk about your initiative with your orchestra, but since you mentioned bucket list, I want to really understand what your brand is as a conductor, what your focus is. And I think I've seen so many disparate assignments for you that I'm not sure yet what is your passion repertoire.
Well, that's great that you don't know, because I'm all about being. I believe that a conductor should be able to conduct everything, and I don't truly believe in specialties. I mean, there are a few people that really devote their lives to Baroque performance practice or whatever it may be. But I believe that to really be a top conductor, you need to be able to conduct all repertoire. So, I mean, as far as passions are concerned, I just gravitate naturally towards Italian romantic repertoire. I love late Verdi and, of course, all of the Verismo repertoire I'm very passionate about. But that being said, I also love German music, so I love Strauss.
Well, as your star is rising, don't you want the record labels to know, oh, we're about to record a Frau und Schatten. Who do we call,
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I have yet to see. Maybe if I have a full season of Wagner, I will really want to do some bel canto. If I have a full season of bel canto, maybe I'll want to do a lot of Strauss. So I'm very lucky in that I get to do all kinds of repertoire. So, for example, I'm doing now Elisir d'Amore here in Santa Fe. Mm-hmm. Then I'm doing Traviata in Detroit. I do a symphonic concert in Toluca, Tchaikovsky 5. Then I do a West Side Story in Houston. Then I do Handel Rinaldo in Detroit. And then I do Siegfried in Atlanta. So I get to do all of the repertoire that I love, and I don't really have to pick and choose. I will say that I'm sort of known for Italian repertoire. That's like it's my third language. I speak it fluently. I'm very passionate about the performance practice of Italian repertoire. But I do contemporary works. I did Gabi's piece. I premiered Tobias Picker's Awakenings.
Was that in Boston or was that in...
that was in Opera Theater
St. Louis, okay.
And I premiered the chamber version of Ricky and Gordon's 27. So I'm passionate about new music as well. So I like to keep it, I think... I don't know. I really don't believe in the specialty thing.
Okay.
I think every time you conduct a piece, you must become an expert in that style. How else can you do it? There's no way. So I'm not one that just takes an assignment easily. So I was offered maybe a year ago an Otello with 2 weeks notice. I've never conducted Otello. It's one of my favorite pieces in the world, but I've never conducted it. And I've never studied it to conduct. So I turned it down. I could have learned it, but I don't honor the pieces that way. So when I did my first Rigoletto, I spent 6 months learning it. And my first Traviata, I spent 7 months learning it. Siegfried, more than a year. So I really take it really seriously to become an expert in whatever I'm doing at that moment.
Okay. I buy that. As you mentioned, you're trying to developed the orchestra at Detroit, and I read about this outreach initiative called Beyond the Pit, and it seems to be really for community engagement.
Yes.
Can you talk about how that's going so far?
It's great. We just had our first one. My idea was that we would bring our wonderful orchestra. We have a very good orchestra in Detroit. It's the Detroit Opera Orchestra. It's a separate entity from the Detroit Symphony. They're not affiliated. And I wanted to feature them as soloists. I wanted to feature them in symphonic repertoire, and I wanted them to be out of the pit. I felt that, orchestras really, it's like they have their own personality, right? And if they play in the pit, somebody like the Metropolitan Opera Orchestra also benefited greatly from playing concerts at Carnegie Hall, right? Mm-hmm. And that was actually a big inspiration for me, where I wanted really for the players to be out and to feel really proud of being seen, not just being heard. And so that was the original concept. And then we thought, well, what is a neglected part of the Detroit community that we haven't really featured? And that was the Hispanic area and Mexican town in Detroit. And we found this wonderful auditorium in one of the high schools. And we featured this free concert for the community where we did, Mendelssohn Hebrides, and we did Copland Appalachian Spring. And
hits.
Yeah, the hits. And the orchestra loved it. And we got to feature all of them outside of the pit. And we got to cater to one of the communities that is not normally catered to really in the sort of classical music
Meet
scene.
them where they're at.
That's right. And so that was another thing where we said, we're so happy to be in your community. We're so happy to be in this school, but please come join us at the Detroit Opera House, because the tickets are not that expensive. And even when I started the job, I wanted to make the Opera House feel like a place to hang out, It doesn't have to be a special event. Just go and show up, and we're going to welcome you with open arms. So that was the thought of the initiative.
I was doing an outreach program with an orchestra in Chicago, and this community is not very well served. And the questions we got in the Q&A session were really, adorable, but also very insightful as to how little exposure some of these audience members have. Questions like, "Oh, do you guys get together and rehearse?"
You're right. If you don't know, then how would you know?
Yeah, do you guys do weddings?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're still talking about Detroit right now. As you said, there's a Rinaldo, which will star Anthony Roth Costanzo, who's here right now, singing in The Righteous. Emily Pogorel's big friend of operaboxscore. Is it her first Violetta?
Her first Violetta. Singing
Traviata. A new concept for Cozy. Yuval Sharon's, is it backwards or something like that?
It's not. Now it's the running joke in the company. We say, well, is this going to be in the right order? Yeah. But no, it's actually the concept is artificial intelligence and robots. And I don't want to give too much away, but actually it's really, really fascinating. I think it's going to be a big hit.
Okay. And then concluding the season with the Central Park Five. That's Anthony Davis's.
That's Anthony Davis.
So I'm guessing that the Traviata is of these four, is the passion piece for you?
Yeah. Well, it's yes. Yeah. That's my sort of bread and butter, one of my favorite pieces ever. And we really wanted, you can't have a Traviata without a great Violetta. And we were looking around for a long time, and I asked Emily's agent if she would be interested to debut it, and she said yes. She's doing it first with us, then in Dresden. So I'm so excited for that. It's a piece that I usually prepare my own orchestral parts for pieces that I do a lot. So I have a set with Carmen, I have a set for Rigoletto, I have a set for Traviata. So these are pieces that I've not just studied, but I've spent the time just
putting all the markings and the bowings.
Yeah,
Thank God for PDFs, right?
That's right. But it makes such a difference, and I'm incredibly passionate about the period practice of Traviata, because a lot of things just go with tradition that have been done for so many years. And I've seen how many Traviatas, I don't know, 100 performances of Traviata. And every time that I have to sit through one where you can tell that the conductor hasn't even bothered to read a letter by Verdi. So
What about stage directors who haven't bothered to learn the music themselves?
Don't get me started. But no, but I will say that as far as stage directors are concerned, I've had both. I've people that have no idea, but also in my career as an assistant conductor before I was conducting, I might have learned more from stage directors than conductors. And so to have a really great stage director like Stephen Lawless for L'Elisir d'Amore, or somebody like Yuval that knows not just the text but the music inside out, then you can create something beautiful.
There's a little joke with a chicken. There's actually a couple jokes with chickens in the show, but if you're like watching carefully, you'll see little touches in the show that are just so delightful, and it does take somebody that loves the music to add that stuff to the show.
Absolutely.
We might as well talk about now. You are here in Santa Fe. This is your debut. Have you had other experiences in Santa Fe before this performance, this production?
My only experience was I was here in 2019 to listen to the Young Artist auditions.
Mm-hmm.
I watched a few performances, and that was that. I had always heard about Santa Fe. I used to work at Opera Theater St. Louis. I was there for 5 seasons, so it's always Santa Fe is the bigger brother of St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone always said, "Oh, Santa Fe is amazing. It's amazing." And I was like, whatever, I'm sure, whatever. But then I came here in 2019 and I was like, wow, this location, there's something really special going on here. And then when I was initially contacted to conduct here, it wasn't originally Elisir, but, we sort of went back and forth with some other repertoire. But then landed on Elisir. I was so happy because I adore this piece. I was so happy to be here. And so my wife, that's Mane Galoyan, that's singing Violetta. She started...
You're not conducting, that Corrado was conducting.
The guy Corrados, yes, that's right.
Have you ever conducted her in Traviata?
Not Traviata,
Okay.
but we met when she was singing Gilda for another Verdi. But we're dying to do one. At some point we'll do it. We just did Cunning Little Vixen together in Detroit. But anyway, so Mane started rehearsals 1 month before I did. So I was here in Santa Fe with her. Basically, it was free time, but I was studying Siegfried.
And getting your body adjusted to the altitude.
And getting that's right. And even
the dryness.
I grew up in altitude in Mexico
Okay.
City, but even with that, it really took a long time to get adjusted. But it's so beautiful. And we have a beautiful
stunning.
house and just watching the sunsets. And I study all day and don't feel stressed out because it's just the environment is great. And then we began rehearsals, wonderful cast, lovely director, incredible music staff, lovely orchestra. So it's been just really positive all around.
I think we're sort of dancing around this clear message we're getting from Santa Fe that the pace of life is just a little bit slower and there's just so much beauty around you that maybe you're more open for receiving opera.
I agree with that. I really feel it. That even if I feel very productive here, but I feel relaxed, and it makes for great music making, great art making.
Any challenges you found with acoustics, with being outdoors, with dragonflies?
I really felt there were more challenges in rehearsal because we rehearsed outdoors a lot. And if the storm comes in and then there's the wind and there's these little strings that they put over the score so that the pages don't fly.
Mm-hmm.
The acoustics, I only have the perception of my acoustic, which is on the podium. But it really varies a lot in this house. So, if you sit really back on the right, you might hear a lot of the strings. But if you go towards the left and the middle, then you're going to hear trombones. So you as a conductor, you just try to shape it the best as you can, and then you can't really accommodate for every acoustic within the acoustic, But overall, it's not a bad acoustic, actually. For an outdoor space, it's quite remarkable. And in our production, for example, we have that back poster that sort of bounces sound a little bit out. The Traviata set has some wall, so it's not totally open. The Righteous has some more, sometimes when it's totally open, the choruses in the back, maybe it can sound a little distant.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, I think it's a beautiful theater acoustically. You can do a lot. You can a lot of shades with the orchestra. I'm saying it of my own show, but like I found the orchestra found really vast dynamic differences. So we had nice fortes, but also we could really come down to beautiful pianos.
Well, I'm glad. I mean, you said already that you are happy with the assignment of Elixir. Is there something, clearly not with you, but is there something with conductors about making important debuts and that debut as a bel canto opera and it being sort of a disappointment for them?
Well, if you don't like it, then it's disappointing. I think, but it's also very difficult repertoire. People think it's easy.
I know.
It's incredibly challenging. It's like, people think Tristan and Isolde or a big Wagner
Or a Pelléas.
or something like that is really challenging. Yes, of course it's challenging, but to do the Barbara Seville, well, something like that is even, I would say, more challenging because you have to have the dexterity in your technique, the real period practice knowledge, and love for singing. And so, you have to support your singers. So if you don't love singing, then you can't do bel canto. And if you don't have good technique and a good sense of pace, then you also can't do bel canto. So I can understand why someone would be, if I were debuting in I don't know, if the Met called and said, "Do you want to do Barbiere?" Of course I'm going to do it, but I'd be like, oh man, it's such a challenge. And I would do it well, but there's something about bel canto that really requires a lot of study, you can't just go, I could fly in and do Bohème blindfolded with a B+ orchestra, B cast, and it would be great. But you can't do that with bel canto. It has to be precise, musical, all these things.
You have to get the orchestra to hear the singer's phrase with you, and you have to know what the phrase is going to be on top of that. So.
You're absolutely right. But that being said, if the orchestra hears too much, then everything's behind. So you must anticipate. Even the orchestra here, I had to ask them one time, because they're incredible colleagues and they've done so much opera, they know when a cadence is going to end, that they went with the singer, not with me. And I had to tell them, please, even if I make a mistake, you go with me, because then I can't pace the evening if we're always waiting for the singers to cadence. Or etc. I need to wait for the singers to cadence, and then that's the way the show moves.
Do you play piano?
That piano is my instrument.
Okay.
So I grew up playing piano since I was 5.
Yeah, I ask because, and this is no shade towards pianists, but I see the struggle often with pianists who are called upon to, be a repetiteur or to coach, and we get to an aria like Una Furtiva, which on the page of the pianist is like, I don't even need to sight read this thing. Like I can just, perform it right now. Yeah. But then you see how badly it goes.
Of course. And talk about an aria that has so much baggage to it. Mm-hmm. Even if you go through the recorded history, it's dramatically different, from decade to decade, what changes. But also, we have a lot of resources, the Donizetti, the ornaments that you heard Jonah do. I told somebody the other day, I said, did you like the ornaments that Jonah did in the aria? They were like, oh, the Alagna ornaments? I said, no, the Donizetti ornaments. Donizetti wrote this 13 years after he finished the piece. Mm-hmm. He wanted to rewrite Prendi because he thought it wasn't such a great piece.
Oh, it's an amazing piece.
Well,
is that the one that Joan Sutherland does, the rewrite, like with the new Cabaletta?
The new Cabaletta, yeah, that's right.
I like the old one.
I think, to be honest, I think the cavatina of the new Prendi is better, and the Cabaletta that we have, the regular one, is better. But anyway, so there's a lot of things in Una Furtiva that you can do, and you have to know you have to know the practice far before you even attempt to conduct it. It's a tricky thing because everyone knows the aria. So
Yeah. People whisper, I heard Pavarotti sing
I heard
this."
Pavarotti. That's right. That's right. And everyone has an opinion.
Yeah.
They'll say, "Oh, well, that's too fast. That's too slow. That's what."
Yeah.
But I thought we found a nice balance. Jonah and I were pretty much in sync during the rehearsal period, and we have a really good synergy. So,
Well, Roberto, thank you so much for being a guest on Opera Box Score, and can't wait to talk again, maybe in the context of when you're conducting Barbara Seville at the Met.
that'll happen. We just said it. It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thanks again to the media and PR team of Santa Fe Opera for treating me so well, but also for giving me access to just about anybody I would like. And I really enjoyed meeting everybody this year. Thank you to Maestro Kalb and to Liv Redpath once again.
This just in, the 2-minute drill.
All right, listen up. Here's everything you need to know about what happened in Operaland this week.
Congratulations to friend of the show, Benjamin Bernheim, for his incredible turn in the closing ceremonies, performing a version of Fauré's Hymne à l'Apollon with Swiss pianist and composer Alain Roche on a quote-unquote prepared piano.
Prepared meaning turning on its side and hoisted on wires in a terrifying display of physics. Yannick Nézet-Séguin will be extending his contract with the Met through 2030. Part of his enticement to stay is a brand new production of The Ring Cycle, directed by Yuval Sharon. Quote, "Every music director of a major opera company expects and deserves to have a ring cycle," said Peter Gelb. "It's the crowning achievement, the biggest thing you can do in opera."
Crunching the numbers, Festival della Valle in southeastern Italy celebrated its 50th anniversary by breaking records, serving 12,000 audience members, a number of sold-out performances. In a season that included Norma, Aladino e la Lampada Magica, and Ariodante, the festival also saw an increase in audience members under the age of 30 and children under the age of 15.
Major awards time! New Zealand soprano Felicity Tompkins has won the 43,000 Australian dollar 2024 Sydney Eisteddfod Opera Scholarship. Meanwhile, Italian countertenor Carlo Vistoli has won the Jan Schrem and Maria Minetti Schrem Emerging Stars competition for his role in Handel's Partenope at San Francisco. Vistoli was voted 2024 Emerging Star of the Year in an online poll and takes away a $10,000 American dollar prize. Finally, Elijah McCormick took first prize in the 11th annual Handel Aria competition. McCormick, a transgender male soprano, was also voted audience favorite.
In trade news, James Robinson, artistic director of Opera Theatre St. Louis since 2008, has announced that he will step down from the organization to become general director of Seattle Opera. "We're looking for somebody that can lead Seattle Opera into a new chapter, and James had all of the capabilities," said Seattle Opera board member Jonathan Ralzoff. Robinson just has an incredible history of bringing new and interesting works to the stage, both at OTSL and in his stage direction around the world, and that was really attractive for us.
Chattanooga Symphony and Opera has announced that Ilya Ram will become the dual organization's newest music director. He'll take up the baton through the 27-28 season.
Exit stage right. Steve Doveslam, the Australian tenor of Chinese and Irish ancestry, has died at the age of 57. Born in Malaysia, Doveslam's operatic debut was in La Callisto at the Melbourne Spoleto Fringe Festival. He went on to become an ensemble member of Zurich Opera, singing lyric roles like Count Almaviva, Tamino, and Don Ottavio. His career took him to the stages of Lyric Opera of Chicago, Salzburg Festival, and La Scala.
Romanian soprano Sandra Șandru has died at the age of 85. Șandru was a soloist at the Bucharest National Opera, debuting in the role of Leonora in Il Trovatore. Her career, singing roles like Aida, Cho-Cho-san, Norma, and Turandot, took her to venues such as Paris, Deutsche Oper Berlin, and Bayerische Staatsoper. In 1993, she became a professor at the National University of Music in Bucharest.
Spanish maestro Miguel Ángel Gómez Martínez has died at the age of 74. He was known for his ability to memorize all of the players' parts and conduct without looking at the score. He held international leading chief conductor positions including the RTVE Symphony Orchestra, Nationaltheater Mannheim, Orchestra de Valencia, and Bern Theater. In 1995, he was awarded the Order of Civil Merit from King Juan Carlos I.
German bass baritone Alfred Kuhn has died at 86. He was a member of the Darmstadt Ensemble for 15 years, followed by 10 years at Deutsche Oper am Rhein and Bayerische Staatsoper. In 1991, he was appointed Kammersänger there. A post from Bayerische regarding Kuhn reads, "We gratefully remember his many acclaimed performances on the stage of the National Theatre as Frank in Die Fledermaus or Antonio in Marriage of Figaro. With Alfred Kuhn, the Bavarian State Opera has lost a much esteemed artist and colleague."
American mezzo Dorothy Krebel died at the age of 94 in Santa Fe. She was in the original Broadway productions of St. Bleecker Street and Candide. She toured in Germany and performed in opera houses of Santa Fe, Lyric Opera of Chicago, Houston Grand Opera, San Francisco, Cincinnati Opera, and San Diego. And on this day, August 12th, first performances include Pietro Generali's Il Servo Padrone in 1818, Ferdinand Herold's Marie in Paris in 1826, Giuseppe Verdi's Alzira in Naples in 1845, Bruno Maderna's Don Perlimplin, which was composed to be performed on the radio in 1962. Luciano Berio's Un Re Ascolto, which was premiered at Salzburg Festival in 1984, and another for Salzburg in 2003, Hans Werner Henze's Lupupa. Birthdays include Giovanni Legrenzi, born in 1626, that was a composer, Maurice Green, another composer, this one from England, in 1696, Spanish tenor Antonio Cortis, who was born somewhere between Algiers and Alicante on a ship in 1891. Polish soprano Maria Olszewska was born in Augsburg. She created the role of Brigitta in Die Tote Stadt by Korngold. She was born in 1892. In 1938, Canadian mezzo-soprano Huguette Turango was born in Montreal. And on this day, August 12th, in 1944, German tenor Peter Hoffmann was born.
And that's your 2-minute drill.
Steve Davoslim singing For Del Mar from a performance at La Scala. The cause of Steve Davoslim's death has not been announced yet, but 57, man, that's just a couple years away from me. Jeez. We'll learn more about it, I'm sure, but our thoughts go out to his family and friends, too young. So, Benjamin Bernheim. I was watching, as I said, that recap. Oh, not the recap. I was watching the live version of it on my DVR, and as the piano was being dropped down, which was first, whoever it was, Mike Tirico, or whoever was announcing, said that the pianist was Benjamin Bernheim. I was like, for sure, Benjamin Bernheim.
I heard that too.
Yeah. So they never gave credit.
Does he play piano too?
Yeah, they never gave credit to the pianist. So we're correcting the record here, so you all know.
Alain Roche.
Yes. So you come to us for your news. You don't go to Classical Almanac or to Slip Disc. But
apparently not.
Alain Roche, we got your back.
You're welcome, Switzerland. We got your pianist under lock. I did hear in that color commentary, Paris's Olympics had committed to being as green as possible. So a lot of the things that were used in both of the ceremonies where possible were from recycled materials. So Alain Roche, our Swiss pianist friend, was wearing a suit made of old recycled videotape reels. So all of that glittery stuff that was flying behind him, that was all VHS tapes. No word on what Ben Bernheim's costume was made of.
Is that an idea that we can carry forth in fashion? Can we all get our unrecyclable VHS tapes and turn them into outfits for important international ceremonies?
I think that is absolutely possible. I'm going to push back a little because there are some VHS tapes that are very near and dear to me and I will hold forever because yes, I still, America, own a VCR. My Muppet tapes, for example, that you'll pry those from my cold dead hands. I'm not making a dress out of those.
So Yannick's contract extended and a new ring cycle announced. This one led by Yuval Sharon of Detroit Opera. It's a very Detroit heavy episode today. Lisa Davidson is also getting a lot of name dropping in this announcement. She will sing Isolde and she will sing Brunhilde. which is crazy to me that we were just learning Lisa Davidson's name like 5-6 years ago, and all saying, "Oh, we have to, one day she'll sing Brunhilde, one day she'll sing Isolde." It's like that day is basically tomorrow.
I mean, it adds to these meteoric rises to fame that we've seen from all of these other different types of artists. But yeah, we haven't seen it go this fast for a lot of opera singers, so it's that much more sort of knee-jerk to see. I mean, and it's well-deserved. She's excellent. I would watch her sing just about anything. But yeah, it is surprising that it seems like it's happened really, really quickly.
I trust that she knows how to take care of her own crew. She's a very smart woman, and she's a friend of the show. But that machine from the Robert Lepage ring cycle, we need to figure out a way to break that up into tiny little strips and turn it into an Olympic ceremony.
Well, we have 4 years to do it from now to when we do it in LA. So I'm sure there will be lots of movie magic that's happening. I bet we can take that set and turn it into something that's movie magic as well.
And just to close the loop on one more thing on the Met announcement, it has in this press release, we're learning that Gabriela Elena Frank's El Último Sueño de Frida y Diego will be brought to the Met. And I hope that will be another opportunity for the Met to showcase friend of the show, Kimon Murat, who triumphed in, I forget what role, but there's footage of him out there singing something from that opera, and he kills it. So we love you, Kimon.
Yes, we do. And we love all these award winners that came through this week. Lots of prize money going around, Australian and American. It was exciting.
Breakdancing.
Oh, y'all. Okay. Can we America. We got to talk about this. Oliver, I am assuming you watched it.
Yes.
I have never in my life, I mean, the TikToks alone, the TikTok response alone has been something. I didn't watch it live, but I started hearing rumblings of the words Australia and breakdancing, and it didn't make a ton of sense to me until it all did. And then I have watched that video no less than 25 times. No less than 25 times. So, America, if you need to pick me up, you're going to Google this scholar who found her way into the Olympics. Although I have seen a little bit of rumblings online, and by online I mean TikTok, that is, how did we get here? How did breakdancing make it into this Olympics? And it's not going to be there in LA in 28. Basically, the World Federation of Dance, or the World Dance Federation, I can't remember which, has been pushing for years and years and years to get ballroom dancing to be an Olympic sport. But they hadn't been able to get it there because it was considered like dated and old fashioned. So the dance world's response was, cool, how about this much newer dance art form? And that's how breaking ended up in the Olympics, just for this one time, but has given us hundreds of thousands of hours of content on one competitive. I can't.
Do you think that she knew that was going to happen to her? How could she not happen?
I don't, because I saw an interview. You know how they do all the little profiles on the athletes ahead of time. So there was an interview with her where either she's the best actor I've ever seen who's committing to a bit and is, a Christopher Guest fan, or this is someone who legitimately in her heart of hearts thought that this was a competition for her to go through. So it could go either way. I've been wrong on these things before, but it's either the biggest commitment ever.
Movie in that moment.
It is. I mean, I can't. I am hopeful that it has not been completely played out by the time that the Saturday Night Live season opener starts, because I'm gonna need someone from that cast to play this person. Okay, America, I have to go because I now need to watch that video 10 more times. So we're gonna wrap the show up.
Good call. Bad call. On Opera Box Score.
Good call, bad call is how we end every one of our episodes. It's going to be pretty quick today since it's just me and my buddy Oliver Camacho.
Ravinia Festival continues its concert versions of operas in the Martin Theater last weekend with Mozart's Idomeneo, conducted by James Conlon, and starring friends of the show, Matthew Polenzani, Samantha Hankey, and Tamara Wilson. All of them were fantastic. Tamara Wilson wasn't the originally scheduled Elettra. She was filling in for Alexandrina Scheiner. I'm sorry if I messed up your name. But what a treat to hear Tammy singing Electra, a role that she sang before, maybe earlier in her career. And now she's singing, Senta and Aida and all these things. But to come back to Elektra and for her to sing it as beautifully as she did, I think a lot of the chorus members are in Chicago Symphony Chorus, so a lot of them are my friends. I was making eye contact with some people in the chorus while she was singing, and it's like, nobody could believe it. It's like, what the hell are we listening to? It's so good. And for the first time, I got to hear this tenor everybody's been talking about, Anthony Leon, who won Operalia a few years ago. I get it now.
Well, My Good Call is one that was initially brought to our attention by Weston, but I have become a fan of. Speaking of Seattle Opera and the James Robinson shout-out in the 2-minute drill, Pagliacci Pizza is teaming up with Seattle Opera for a collaboration on the opera Pagliacci, which is now being performed through a couple of days from now. So part of what they're doing, this collaboration, it's an anniversary because the pizza place is celebrating its 45th anniversary. Seattle Opera is commemorating its 60th. So what better way for these people to come together? And one of the people from the pizza place was like, well, we have a cousin who's an opera singer. And it's like, haven't we all had that conversation with someone that you don't know? They find out that, like, you work in the arts, and then they tell you the one, like, relative or distant friend of a relative who does the same thing that you do. So I just thought that was genius. And I also love pizza. So congratulations to both the pizza place and to Seattle Opera on their anniversaries. That's it for this week's edition of America's Talk radio show about opera. Make sure you subscribe to that show wherever you get your podcasts, or you can get your voice heard and find links to stuff we've talked about at our website. I've said it once, I'll say it again, operaboxscore.com. That is also where you can put your money where our mouths are. Give back to OBS using that Support the Team tab. Your announcer is Norm Waddell, your creative consultant is Oliver Camacho, and your audio editor is Weston Williams. For our guests Liv Redpath and Roberto Kalb, I am Ashley Hardgrave, asking you to continue the conversation about opera as you play piano sideways in a suit of Betamax cassettes. We're back with an all-new show next week where we go inside the huddle with lighting designer Christine Binder. Plus, you're going to get more opera headlines, more hot takes, and more Olympics withdrawal. Join us.